right, Lyle, what do we got here?
You got your 4 giblets. Got a piece of shit's what you got. Oh, it's a mess.
And why is it a mess?
It's been rednecked too many years.
Reneckery.
It's been reneckery for 70 years.
I see the tweakers in Pot County got that one. So with the house wire nut.
It's all about to get ripped out.
So there's no telling what.
Oh, it's
the ailment.
I mean, if you look at this, it's like here's the feed wire coming off the alternator. Chase it up in here. Look at this crap. It comes up to this.
That's corroded.
No, hang on. That's not that one. It's where are you? Right here. It comes up to this terminal up here, which has about 3 or 4 other wires under it. And finally, we have one that comes off up here to the amp meter. And then we come off the amp meter here, come down to this thing, which, and then that goes who knows where. Well, that goes to nowhere.
The wire to nowhere.
And I think this, and then I'll come off your ignition switch here. We got, I think they're grabbing power to here to run to the ignition and also run down to the exciter to the.
Okay, yeah.
I think this is what they're using for the exciter on the alternator. Yeah, I'm like this, and this is all loose and. I mean, look at this crap. I'm like, I don't know what they got going here.
Well, I think this one wire, if we get some electrical tape, we should be able to fix this mess.
So I'm going to start slicing all this crap off of here and throwing it away.
All right, well, let's get busy. All right, that's some of the mess that we took off this tractor. Show you the progress so far. Took out the regulator and all the burned up wires, took all the wires off this relay switch right here and everything going to the alternator. Ended up having to take the top plate off the transmission gear shift housing to remove the starter switch because the backer nut is on the inside. Take you around here. Pulled a few of the gauges out. Got all the wires taken off here. And we've already put new points and condenser in the distributor, put a new 12-volt coil with a resistor built into the coil. And that's the progress we've made so far. We'll catch you up in a little bit. Let's take a look to see what's been done and how much is still left. Quite a bit, actually. All right, we've got a gauge on order that should be here. There's a terminal block that belongs here that I didn't order in the first set of parts, so that should be here tomorrow as well. We're going to go ahead and replace the starter solenoid right here, and that'll give us an extra function so that you cannot start the tractor with it in gear. And speaking of which, here's the transmission top plate that had to be removed to get to the backing nut on the starter switch. We've started on the wiring harness, and I've got another alternator that I pulled out of the barn, and we're going to see which one we like, but it's just like this one, a 3-wire General Motors Delco style. Took the oil filter out. Had to do so that I could remove the starter. Whenever we turned the engine over by hand, we noticed that the starter was engaged and it was clicking on the override clutch. So that's not good. And so I took the starter out, and sure enough, that starter bendix is messed up and it won't pop out. So I've got a new one ordered there. Pulled the spark plugs. And with the scope, looked inside the cylinders, and it looked better than I thought. In that sense, there was no rust or pitting or gouging in the cylinders, but it did look more worn out than I would have thought it would have been. There's a lot of piston slap, it looks like, that could be in there. I don't know how the rings are sealing as good as they are. I've never seen this thing run, so it may be hard to start because of blow by and compression loss. So, and it may use oil, so we'll see about that. Got a new coil on it, new points and condenser. I've got a new cap and wires and spark plugs on order that should be here on Friday as well. New temperature gauge, because I think that had something to do with all the wires melting there. And give me your comments here. I know I'm sort of keep it original kind of guy, but this key switch is on the left side of the tractors, and being on this side of the pond and being right-handed, I thought it might be handier on the right side, and there is a factory hole for it right here. So I might move it there, and plus how you turn the key clockwise, it just seems more natural to me. So that may be one place I'd deviate. In talking with the owner, they said the 3-point hitch did not work, and that's why the tractor is put in storage. So once we get this all together and running, we may start digging into that to see what all is the case there. So I believe that's caught up. So I will pull that carburetor and let's take a look at that. Okay, I've got the carburetor pulled off. It is the Marvel Schebler, if I pronounce that right, carburetor. They've been in business for about 125 years or so. Been on just about anything with an engine. And let's see here. And these carburetors have been just on a lot of tractors, and they're pretty universal. Oh, and this one came with obligatory rounded off flare nut fitting on the fuel line. So if you don't have a flare nut tool, I would highly recommend it, because this goes around the fuel line. You get more coverage on the nut itself. That way you do not round it off. Most people use an open end, a little bit worse, a crescent, and even worse than that, vice grips, and just chew up that fitting right there. So get a set of these. All right, and if it matters, we can see what this was set at before we even get started, and just count the turns. Well, that one's all just pretty much shut down all the way. They usually, to start off with, are about 1.5 turns out. This is all but turned in whenever I get it. All right, let's see what this is at. There's one. There's two. Two and a half. We're slowing down. About 2 3/4 right there. All right. So we'll just take a flat screwdriver and take the top off. And I can already smell that old rotten gas. And if you've got a pan, it helps. So that way, if it leaks or you lose anything, hopefully it hits the pan. Be observant, just in case any of these bolts have long or short ones. And in fact, like here's an example right here. Here's the first one I took out, and there's the second. Now, with something this old, who knows what's been put in it, and plus sometimes you can tell by what you're screwing into. And use a big, good new screwdriver, and don't round these off either. And on the nuts and lock washer, I just put them here just for safekeeping. All right, let's see here. It should come off. And be gentle with this. I wouldn't hit it with a hammer. If anything, a rubber mallet or the handle to a screwdriver, because you don't want to break any flanges here, or you'll be in deep sorrow and in a world of hurt really quick. There we go. Okay, we're held on by that gasket. I've got a new kit, so I'm not so concerned about saving this one, but if you are, be careful, or get a putty knife and go around it. All right, now that gasket should come with it because it's got that float right behind it. Yeah, we're going to just tear up that gasket. That's okay, we'll get it off, and we've got another one. Oh yeah, you can see some of that stale gas and deposits. Here's a needle and seat right there. And this float, let's see if I can hold it up, goes like this, and it operates a needle and seat right there that allows fuel in. Whenever it gets low, it opens up. Whenever the fuel runs into this bowl, this floats and closes this valve off on the inlet. And so it's just always finding its happy spot like that. And then this is the Venturi. And the Venturi effect is what mixes the air and the fuel and atomizes it and then pulls it into the intake. Pretty simple. Do not force anything. If it doesn't want to come apart, study it. There's a reason why, probably. And sometimes these can develop pinholes and they sink. Obviously, they'll fill up full of fuel. And if they don't float, you can test it. If they don't float, that's a bad one. Some of these can have old gas and deposits and dirt all filled up inside there. And all these little holes where air and fuel go through need to be as clean as they can. Or else the carburetor will behave weird, it won't run right, or it may not run at all. And here's your choke right there. Choke it, you close off the air, and then that way it runs rich and it pulls through the carburetor a little bit more. Oh, I'm sorry, I take that back. It doesn't do that. It just richens it up because it closes off some of the air. Here's the spring for the self-return. All right, well, I'm going to start cleaning this up. I've got the top half of the carburetor stripped down, and I got lucky here. I had a big screwdriver large enough to go across both halves and get this out. If you don't have a large screwdriver, you're going to have to get creative, something to go across and then something to turn that possibly. Put that in there. Clean this up the best you can with a putty knife or a razor blade, and then maybe you can follow up with a very fine wire brush. Oh, I need to take that out because you don't want to gouge and nick the mating surface there. In fact, on this half here, the bowl part, I cleaned the gasket off and a little bit was stuck. And then I got some, this is 220 fine grit sandpaper, and just do like figure eights, circles back and forth, and that'll tell you your high and low spots, because this came pre-gouged and it cleaned up pretty good. Just wanted to pass that tip to you, and then I'm going to soak this overnight and let it clean up and get all that junk out of there. Let me catch you up on everything I've done on this side the past couple of days. In order of operations, the first thing I did was change out the water temperature sensor, and the best we discovered is the electrical system tried to use this as a ground, but There's the fitting, and this one was slightly bigger, and I did some research thinking I had the wrong one, but all the part numbers matched up. So what I ended up doing was taking a drill bit and just making it, I believe it was a 7/16 inch drill bit actually, and just wallowed out that hole just a little bit. It may have been just calcium and rust build up in there, the reason why that probe wouldn't go in there. But that's the trick if you're ever in that situation. And then I just ran the wire over, and unfortunately you can't cut it. And then I ran it to the back of the new gauge right there. And then here's the existing oil pressure gauge. And if you saw the video just a little bit earlier, we had a drip right about here underneath the battery on the original line. And this is 1/8 inch copper or brass line. And I didn't have a flaring tool that small. So what I ended up doing was getting a new elbow right here with compression fittings. And it took weeks to get it on the Jungle website. The first one I got was the wrong size, so don't believe everything you see on the internet. Doesn't make it true. And so for your record, it's 1/8 inch NPT that goes into the block, has a 90-degree turn pointing towards the radiator to the front, and then a 1/8 inch compression fitting on this side. And then I just took a 1-inch socket and just gently put a radius bend on this line, ran it across the top of the pump underneath the battery, goes up by the steering column and right here to the back of the gauge. It doesn't look like much work, but just getting that fitting was the biggest job right there.
So GM 3-wire alternator, got it wired up. The sense wire just doubled back over to the battery post, and then the exciter wire with the diode stuck in it so it doesn't backfeed the ignition. And all that comes up here and goes through the amp meter and then through a fuse over there so it doesn't melt the whole thing down again. And through your little jumper, and then the ignition goes down here through the key switch and down to the coil. Starter relay with a new wire that goes to the starter button.
Oh, helps you turn the key on.
Yeah, it helps too, you know.
Let's try it without that. You ready?
Yeah.
Hey friends, it's a new day, and let me give you an update and a summary on this tractor, and I think we'll cut it off here in a second. What we ended up doing on it was all new spark plugs, wires, cap, rotor, points, condenser, the coil, all new wiring on it. We noticed that the oil line to the pressure gauge was leaking, so I installed a new one, made a new one, just went to the auto parts place and got that 1/8 inch tube on it. And within compression fittings, I did have to order one and got that all fixed up, put a new temperature sensor in there. And I think when it shorted out, it used this wire as a ground and it just burned it all up. And new battery cables on it. Got the hood on, new gauge, and then on this side, the alternator that was on it worked really good, surprisingly enough, so we kept that, rebuilt the carburetor, got it adjusted, and it really started running a lot better once we set the timing on it and got the dwell taken care of. And then all new wiring here. I did ultimately switch out this solenoid, and that was another problem. I don't know if it caused the meltdown, but it would stick every now and then, and I don't know if it was a 6-volt coil. I don't think that would have caused the problem, but it would stick and the starter would stay engaged. So I switched that out, new wires, it's got the new spring and Bendix on the starter as well. New switch right here. Hey Pamela Anson, I'll call you back later. And we're all good to go here. New starter switch right here, and change fluid in the transmission, and added a little choke lever. And as you can see, now we're on to the next project, but I will save that for next time. I do appreciate your time in watching the video. I know I probably skipped over a lot of details on the repair, but if you have any questions, put them down in the comments below and I will be good about answering them or giving any direction that I can to help you out, because I know it's not always easy, but been there, done that. And I thank you for your time. Please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Take care.